Hey there. Well, y'all just had a look at the pawpaws right here behind me. Those are all grafted pawpaws. I have a total of 20 pawpaws that I've grafted thus far, 5 different varieties. I have NC1, Overlease, Mango, Sunflower, and Susquehanna, which, by the way, the Susquehanna came off of a tree that I had purchased before, which is for my own personal use. Anyways, that being said, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is observation that I've had between pawpaw root suckers and pawpaw seedlings. Now, what I have here behind me is a mixture of the two. Now, this one right here, all the ones that are in the pots that are shaped like this are pawpaw suckers. And these suckers came from a tree that I had gotten from an elderly gentleman that lived up the road who has since passed away, and unknown what the variety is. Last year was the first year that I got fruit from it, and the fruit was small, but it had a good flavor. I dug root suckers up around that pawpaw over the years, and last year I decided, you know what, I'm going to dig some root suckers up and utilize them for grafting. Now, I had planted these root suckers when I dug them up. I planted them into 2-gallon pots, and I babied them over the summer. I stripped all the leaves all the way up to the top of the tree itself, or the sucker, and I just left like 3 or 4 leaves on top, with the idea of keeping this stem alive, keeping this right here alive to give the energy back down into the root. And it worked. It was successful, as you can see. This one here is an NC1, and it was grafted on March 13th of 2020. This is the first time I've ever taken on this task, and I'm really excited about it. Let me see if I can find another one here. Now, this one right here, it too is an NC1, and as you can see, it did very well. It's just a matter of time for that wound to heal. The parafilm will come off on its own, but some of these I did with rubber band to hold that union tight with. Those are NC1s, and the one I'm going to show you now is a overlease. It too was done on March 15th. Well, wait a minute here, 13th. The other NC1 was the 15th. This one here was done on March 15th. And as you can see, it's doing very well on its own. I'm really shocked and pleased that these have done so well. Let me set this down here. Now, the 3 pots I just showed you, of course, like I had said before, they're all root suckers, and they were dug up last year. They were probably about 2 foot tall when I decided to go ahead and graft into them. I left them outside, down in the grow box, down in the dirt, covered them up with leaves, and then back in February, popped them up out of the ground, put them down in the basement, and waited for them to wake up, in which they did. Every last one of the root suckers that I did last year woke up. And of the root suckers, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got a total of 11 root suckers that I had grafted into. And I've got some that I grafted in last week, and that was the mango and the sunflower. That being said, now I'm going to show you what the seedlings are doing. There. That is a seedling that I had grafted into, and you can see the date on that is the same, 3/15 of 2020. Now, mind you, excuse me, that seedling right there was started last year. I stratified a bunch of seeds, and I got them started last year, and they came up about the end of March, beginning of April. I planted them outside, and then I went outside also in February, and I dug them up as bare root, brought them in the house, planted them into these type of pot, tall one tree pot by I can't remember who the place is. Stew and Sons Incorporated. That's a 14-inch pot, and it's designed to deal with long tap roots. But you can see for a 1-year-old seedling, I was able to graft into that. Which, by the way, that seedling, and it has to do with probably the way I cared for them, is about the size of a 2-year-old seedling because the stem was so thick. And that was a cleft type graft, and it too has a rubber band to hold that union tight together. Let me set this over here. And I have another one that's an overlease. And this one right here is a Susquehanna. Now, a couple years ago, I bought a Susquehanna at the Pawpaw Festival, and it almost died on me last year, and I wasn't crazy about how the stems was coming up, and I had decided, you know, I want one leader stem to come up, and the rest of them I cut off. And instead of discarding the rest of them, I went ahead and used that as scion wood to do a graft. Incidentally, this one right here does not have a rubber band around it. Just got to be careful with it. Don't bump the scion from the root stock, and it'll heal itself up. And as you can see, it took off. Let me set that down. Now, one of the things that I do want to share with you as far as my thoughts of what I've been thinking about, I've gotten scion wood from 2 different places. Right now my plan is out there in a fruit garden that you all very well know that I've planted. I intend to have nothing but overlease and NC1 out there. Now, mind you, the overlease and the NC1 grafting material as far as scion came from one establishment. Now, I do have an NC1 already out there that I bought at the Pawpaw Festival last year, and one overlease that too came from the Pawpaw Festival last year. Whenever I go to plant my grafted out there, and when I go to graft what is already out there, I have some that are still out there that I intend to graft into. I'm going to have to be careful because my scion wood coming from the same establishment, if I graft 2 NC1s and I just plant those 2 trees next to each other, there's a small possibility that those trees, or that the grafting wood, the scion rather, came from the same mother tree. That being the case, those 2 I wouldn't believe would be able to cross-pollinate one another. Just like a sucker. You dig up suckers around a pawpaw tree and you plant them together, you know, they're not going to produce one another because they came from the same mother tree. That's the reason why I decided to choose 2 and only 2 varieties to go out there. Now, from my understanding, the Oberlease and the NC1 both produces large pawpaws, and that's what I'm after. Now, later on down the road, as they produce, I'm hoping that I can possibly get pawpaws out of them, and when I do, the seeds from those pawpaws are going to turn out to be seed select, because your Oberlease and your NC1 are pollinating one another. And those, by the way, are the only two that's pollinating one another. This is just something I wanted to share. I've gotten excited about the pawpaws. I've planted a lot of different variety of trees, hardwood trees, persimmons, crab apples, apple. I've even done blueberries and cherries. But for some odd reason, that pawpaw has gotten me under its grasp. And maybe it's because it's a tree that is native to our country. And that intrigues me an awful lot, that it's native to our country. And a lot of people have really gotten into growing pawpaws, eating pawpaws. I mean, shoot, there's 3 different pages on Facebook right now that are pawpaw related. And which, by the way, I subscribe to all 3, and I do post videos on all 3. I hope that the videos that I do post are something that you can learn from. I'm also learning as I go, but I'm sharing what it is that I learn, and I'm looking at my own personal observations. Now, one of the things that I have noticed is between the seedlings and between root suckers. Root suckers seem to have taken the graft of the scion wood much quicker, more robust. I have no idea why that is. The only thing I can think of is your seedling, taproot goes straight down and it just keeps right on going down. And it gets a little bit of fiber off to the side. Root suckers, you have a lateral because it came from the mother tree, boom, and it continued to go out that way. You have that sucker, you snip it off on both sides, and when you plant that and put rooting hormone on that, all this lateral starts growing downwards, and you end up with more root, I would think, but I could be wrong. Correct me if I am. But anyways, just something I wanted to share with you. I have a lot of plans in the works, a lot of things going on. Hopefully the plans that I have will work out, and as I do what it is I have upstairs here, I will continue to share that with you. Y'all have a God-blessed day. If you like what you see, subscribe, and don't forget to click on that bell for notifications.